So the good, bad, and ugly. I think in the prototype phase, the prototype never comes out exactly as you want it. There's always going to be sacrifices along the way. It's about, I think for us, it was about figuring out what's good enough to go to market with so we could get customers going. Because ultimately, getting customers to test it was the single most valuable thing we did, right? Because that led to the best dev we could really do. Because in the garage, you can only do so much, right? You can only kind of rip ideas from other success stories so much, until which time you put people on your platform, real users. So now comes the fun part. Is anybody looking to raise money right now? Are you guys funding it yourselves? You're raising money? Okay. Good place to be. But in the raising money category, I mean, I put this in here because I think it's interesting in case you are going to look for money to scale the business or to raise it from both private, strategics, or VCs. I can at least share with you kind of what we did. First of all, I will say that the VC Superman logo is, there's some humor there, but I think there's a couple of lessons I learned doing this Sand Hill Road trip. So Sand Hill Road is the up north kind of Silicon Valley location where all the VCs just conveniently have a shop next door to each other, and they're literally, many of them are in walking distance actually. But you drive up and down this one street and that's where everybody's taking pitch meetings. So I was flattered because we got meetings. I thought that was cool. I was like, wow, we got meetings, so okay. So we go up there, we meet with 7 or 8 people, and after the very first meeting, I realized that there's kind of a playbook here that I didn't get advance notice of. I did not get the memo. And I had been in some pretty big corporate deals in the advertising side, but this was different. This was quasi-disruptive. And for me, I went in there with kind of a script, like, hey, this is what I'm going to talk about. This is slide 1, this is slide 4, this is slide 5. And that gets thrown as, you're nodding your head, that gets thrown out the window within 30 seconds, right? And so there's some posturing, there's some try to rattle you, there's some kind of non-important things, and then there's really just 4 things I think that they follow in their own playbook, VCs in particular. And they almost go down the list. What's your market size? And if you haven't said market size within the first 20 seconds, they're going to ask you, what's your market? What's the market size? What kind of share do you think you're going to get of that market? And there'll be some pretty really bright analysts sitting in the room who do a lot of numbers in their head, and they will quickly tell you, this is crap, this is great, I don't believe your numbers are accurate, right? So there's that, and then there's scale. How are you going to scale? How are you going to scale your business? How are you going to scale the company? How do you get across the chasm? All the buzzwords come out, right? When do you see your key pivot? Everything you could think of that you've read in a book comes out of these meetings. What do your competitors look like? And then the fun one, which I always thought was interesting, was what does your exit look like? Well, I don't know, Google's going to buy me. I mean, why not? And that's pretty much what I felt like. At the moment, I'm like, I don't mean what the exit's going to look like. Well, there's a lot of people who would like to buy us because we're going to be this great big company. Yeah, but who? All right, fine, I'll name the top 5 companies in the world, and then I'll call it a day. And it was a learning experience. So the first meeting, I walked out of there thinking, A, who are these clowns? B, they know nothing about my business. I'm frustrated with the fact that I couldn't communicate everything I wanted to. But then you quickly realize when you know the kind of 4 areas of focus, if you get those out of the way, then you can pretty much control the dialogue, and you can get into a point where, whether or not they want to invest in you is a whole different book. It's probably a book on that. I'm sure there's a lot of books on whether or not they want to invest in you. But I got a couple of funny comments. I got one that says, well, we're really looking, you look like you might be a $50 to $70 million business. We're really looking for things over $100 or $200 million. So is that a real concern? Are you really worried that we're only going to generate 50? I thought that was great. I'm like, yeah, we're going to generate $50 million. This is great. And they're like, no, we were looking for 100 or 200 million. And we need 400, 500, 1,000% returns. And I'm like, yeah, okay, this is silly. So And it's not silly. There's a lot of people who get some really good money from VCs and they're really good partners to work with. I'm just saying that in our experience, there's some lessons to learn and there's some pitfalls to avoid that are pretty common. I think if you hit these 4, you can avoid the common pitfalls, or at least the ones that I found too. Yeah.
The VC is going to want to know when he can cash out, though, correct?
Yeah, cashing out
he's
is
waiting for you to do that, basically.
Yeah, so the exit question is fair. What he's hoping is, though, that you have the scalable effects to actually make an exit. So what he's doing is he's making a calculation and a bet. Because if you say Google, that's fine. He doesn't really care about the company as much as the possibility that you actually get to the point that somebody wants to acquire you at the multiple that they're looking for. So they're looking at multiples. Right away, they're looking at 100%, 200%, 300%. And it was, honestly, $50 to $70 million is good, but, we really want a bigger company. They want Dropbox. They want LinkedIn to go public. They want those types of things. And that's what, typically, from what I've seen, the VC culture is about making it's a loss leader play. A series of loss leaders in the hope that one is their big, huge one.
They have to offset all that loss,
Yeah, they offset the loss with one big one. They get one big one every 3-4 years, they're golden, right? So what we ended up doing is going to a strategic, but not by design necessarily. So I was working for EW Scripps, and I gave in my resignation because we were looking at term sheets from VCs and others. And then the CEO of EW Scripps had been telling his senior staff that they were looking for investments, not to my knowledge. I was on the market executive team, but not the corporate EW Scripps team, so I would have never known that. And when I told the president of my division that I was leaving, he says, "Hold on, where are you going?" I said, "Well, I've been kind of cooking up something in the garage. I'm gonna, go on my own way. Hang on, don't resign yet. Let me, connect you with corporate." And then I flew out, met with them, and they took a keen interest in our model. One of the things that worked in my favor in this case, I think, was that, Scripps was looking and they were trying to make strategic investments. I think the other thing that was great was that they had a good history of it with folks who had worked inside the company. So HGTV started with inside of EW Scripps, and their founder was a guy who worked his name is Ken Lowe. He's now the CEO of the Scripps network division, which owns Food Network, Home and Garden TV. They have a networks division, and then they have a broadcast and newspaper division. So he was a great success story. He was somebody who came out of one of their radio stations and who they funded, and then from there he developed HGTV. So I thought that was great. I had worked for the company, they took an interest, it was a great alignment for us, so we went strategic. But we would have gone VC otherwise, and would have had no problem. Art of the Start, have you guys read that? If not, I'm not a guy who's going to be pushing a lot of books around, but this is one of them that I can honestly say I felt like was a good playbook. If you're going to go through those stages of garage mode and kind of prototype and go to market and really try to get funding, I think Guy Kowski does a good job of it. So operating with the first customers. Do you have customers yet? Have you had some customers on the traffic to the site? Is anybody, well, you guys are deving for other folks, but have you?
Well, I actually kind of launched just a project website about 2 weeks ago. The first couple days I got about 1,000 hits on each.
Nice. What kind of website? So what is it?
It's a niche website. It's a pinball website.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Is it about machines available, or is it about
technical tips, resources, some news,
refurbish, that type of thing?
That was initially, because that's what I do that as on the side as well. But I kind of, that was what I started with, and then I don't want to do that. I want to go towards providing, taking in news and creating a news source like Gizmodo or
got it.
TechCrunch.
So a TechCrunch for pinball niche. Oh, perfect. Well, then this is probably applicable. You got 1,000 people there, which is really cool in the first couple of weeks. I think here's something, and Eric and I were talking about this earlier. I kind of subscribe to this. I think we use it at eByline, and I think it works well in general. So founder of Netscape, Mark Anderson, says that basically the life of any startup can be, a before and after product market fit. And product market fit, I think, is really, really important, and I think it's really important to understand when the product fits the market and at what time, rather than being either too early to get feedback back or too late. And it's just kind of a balancing act. Often, especially in the sales arena, when we would coach sales reps to go out to advertisers, would tell them that an advertiser, which is just a business owner, learns from the reps who walk in and out of their shop every day. They really do, especially when they build a relationship with them. They're the ones feeding them the new and innovative ways in which they can market themselves. And without that communication, the business owner is really kind of, they're stuck. They're stuck kind of on their own, managing day to day. So they rely on a good rep. That's why we used to teach the reps to really educate. The same is with the product, right? The end user doesn't really know what they want until it's presented to them. And then from there, once it's presented, they can kind of give feedback on what's presented as to good, bad. But sometimes people go too early out to the market, and the market really doesn't know. The market isn't really educated yet. And part of our jobs, I think, just in being in this space, is educating the end user to the vision that we have, right? I mean, that's essentially what it is. One way to test this, and this can be debated in what percentage, but I said to our team, do you believe that at least 40% of our users would be really disappointed without eByline? Would they, if it just went away tomorrow, would we have at least 40% of them putting up their hands saying, what the heck's going on? What happened? And I believe yes, we would. Do I believe that would have happened though in year one? No, probably not. In year one, we came out of the market really focused in on workflow tools, on the tool itself. We're going to add efficiency, we're going to streamline your operations, we're going to basically eliminate the fact that you have spreadsheets tracking people's names, your favorite freelancers, and you have to fill out forms in triplicate in your organization to get a freelancer paid, and it's going to take 2 months to get them paid. Instead, we are going to wipe all that out and we're going to be really efficient and change our whole world. Well, even though all those things were true, and it's a really, really, really valuable solution, it's not sexy. And it's really plumbing and not really what they're thinking of as something appealing or something that they want to do. It's not necessarily action-oriented. It solves a pain that they may not feel, only a couple people in the organization feel, right? So once we started talking though and flipped the conversation around about expanding content and being able to produce content now in a series of niches that you couldn't before by gaining access to this great database of vetted freelancers, all of a sudden everybody's raising their hand saying, oh yeah, that's pain. I can't find good people to go cover the local strawberry festival or the local wine tasting event if I'm a newspaper. If I'm a brand, I can't find people to give me original coverage from the Olympics on how technology was used. Who would I go to for that? I could run the AP story, but that doesn't work for me. And so now you have people with gaps that we're quickly filling, even though what we're really doing is giving them the same platform that we were going to market with in the first place. The difference now is that we're talking about it in the terms they understand, which is your pain is coverage, your pain is expanding content, your pain is finding talent. And yeah, we have this great tool that solves all of that at the same time. It's the TiVo problem, right? How come TiVo isn't the mainstream DVR? In fact, we used to call it TiVo when it came out. It was, I'm going to TiVo that, I'm going to TiVo this, right? And everybody's kind of been studying that TiVo model as a failure in marketing because they kind of marketed themselves as a improvement on the VCR. It's this great new VCR that you could use, and instead of your VCR, you could use a TiVo. Instead of saying, TiVo pauses live television, TiVo lets you control the time in which you watch television. TiVo is a completely new and different experience. Same box, just different way of positioning it in the market, right? And now we would all die without our DVRs. So they had a great product market fit. I know they're still around, I just mean they could definitely be the only dominant source. Right? So this is kind of the last slide I had, and definitely want to open up for discussion, but this slide is really what I think captures everything. It's pretty simple. Product market fit. This is at the bottom because this is what everybody strives to get at all times, us included. If we put years next to product market fit, you could argue 2009 was garage mode, pre-funding. We got funded in 2010. EW Scripps came in with our first round at 1.5 million. And when they came in with our first round, still finding product market fit that whole first year. So there's 2010 is in the pink bucket. 2011, we grew by 100% year over year from 2010 to 2011. And at the end of 2011, we got another $5 million round from EW Scripps, a follow-on round to help us scale. And even then, helping us scale in 2011, at the end of 2011, and then into 2012, we were really in this pink and moving into transition to growth. This transition to growth is a really important phase because critical mass is the fact that our parents have iPhones. That's critical mass, right? Critical mass of adoption. And everyone wants to get there, right? So you go through early adopter stage, you're still figuring out product market fit. That could take years, it could take weeks, it just depends who you are. But for us, it's actually been a 3-year transition to where we are we're definitely under critical mass, but I think we're close. We're under it, but we have a big opportunity in the next 1.5 to 2 years to cross that. And this is where it's like starting all over. So for us, we've got through product market fit in the first 2.5 years, and now the next 2.5 years are going to be all about getting over critical mass, right? So if you look at a 5-year window, so by the end of 2014, I definitely want to be over this. And now our company's evolved to the point where I can actually have this discussion with our employees, and I hold this graph up all the time. And I say, all right, this year and next year, we're crossing that line, somewhere between now and then, and here's how we're going to do it. And these are the milestones we need to accomplish to get there. So that's kind of product market fit, and I wanted to just kind of give you the stages that I went through. Any questions? General thoughts?